We're at the Axminster Power Tools Centre in Nuneaton, and this is a kind of what I call a television set workshop, but it's gorgeous. It's got everything there.
I like the little bandsaw at the back. It's very cute.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yep, you can carry that under your arm.
For me, that's a little bit too small, but if you've only got a very small workshop...
Well, look, there's some other benches here, so...
These are the ones more like mine.
I'm walking around with Andrew Lawton and Tegan Foley from the Woodworking magazine, and we're just imagining if we started woodworking again from scratch, what choices we'd make regarding equipment and tools.
If I was starting again from scratch, this is the bench I would go for, because it's got a good length, it's pretty sturdy, and it's got the tail vise, which is very useful for trapping components on the bench when we're planing or doing other work on them. An excellent, well-made bench, and it's got a laminated top, which means it's
very solid as well, isn't it?
It is. It's going to stay flat and true, which is essential.
So that's not going to move because there's lots of strips.
Exactly. So that's a really good bench.
I mean, I don't know what this is. I guess it's a kind of posh MDF. It's maybe another composite material, but all these little holes and slots. I love benches like that. They don't look much, and in a way this is in contrast to your approach, where you like the big kind of regal religious ritual bench, solid beech bench, and I'm a peasant, you know. I go for the lightweight folding bench because I've got a smaller space, but I mean they can be pretty solid, and you know I wouldn't mind malleting on something like this. I don't like the underframe. I might put a curtain around there. So thinking about what we would buy if Andy and I were starting again, and in fact, what's our combined experience, would you say, roughly?
It's going to be about 90 years.
It's do you know, I hate to admit it, but it's getting on almost for 100 years between us.
Wow.
Even though I'm only 35. I mean, these bandsaws at this store are fantastic. I think there's two types. There's a trade range and a craft range. So I'd probably either go for something like this. I mean, the one I've got is one of their big ones, but if I was starting again, I think you can get away with quite a small bandsaw because it's horses for courses. You can always join up small bits of wood to make larger pieces, so you don't necessarily need a big machine. I'd probably go for this. They've got a craft one if you like to come round. Something like this, and the only difference really is how long you use it for, because the motors wouldn't last as long.
Probably for a hobbyist, one of those would last many years.
Absolutely.
These are aimed to be used day in, day out. I'm not so keen on these lightweight hammers. I like a bit of weight in a hammer.
Yeah, I agree with you.
This one's much better. Got a bit of clout for this.
Yeah, a bit of clout. That's what we need, Andy.
We don't need to swing it high. We just let the tool do the work.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I wonder whether there's anything we really disagree over. Apart from the sharpening tool, I'm not even going to reveal how I sharpen my tools, but it's a lot quicker than the way you do it.
Oh, probably the way we cut dovetails as much as anything.
No, I do cut dovetails the same way as you.
You do? Yeah.
Shoreditch.
Oh yeah, yes.
Don't forget, your influence is from your father, and your father was influenced by Shoreditch and Loughborough, and I trained at Shoreditch. So we actually come from the same stable. But we have different approaches.
We do.
That is the rich tapestry of life. But I can't cut dovetails quite as fast as Andy, but one of these days Andy and I are going to have a competition to see who can cut the fastest, most accurate dovetail.
We want a 600mm steel rule. Okay.
What's 600mm in old currency?
2 feet.
2 feet, yeah, so it acts as a straight edge, yeah?
Yep. We need a mortise gauge and a marking gauge.
Yep, what's that for?
What's the difference?
That's for that's got two parallel spurs. This is a combined one, so that would be the ideal one. That's for marking out mortises. That's for general marking of gauge
parallel lines. All right, what have we got here?
A combination square if we can find one.
Yeah, but even that, it's gorgeous looking, isn't
really
it?
Nice.
Yeah. Is that pivot or is it? No, it's not a swinging one like my Nobex. Look, you see,
Really nice.
look, they have to padlock them down. They're such gorgeous things.
Yeah, so we got
Okay,
one of
so
those.
Carpenter's pencil.
carpenter's pencils. I personally use a biro.
Better than 2H pencil, yeah. So
Yep.
it's anything about, so we've
Okay,
got marking
so-
gauges. What's next on the
There's a marking knife.
need a marking knife? Yeah.
Combinations.
Good quality. Yeah, that's what I like actually, because you can do several things with it. You can take that out and use it as a small ruler. You've even got a spirit level.
Go for that then as the
Yeah,
essential thing to get right.
and I like the colour. You know, it's bright, it's cheerful.
Can't lose it.
Yep. Yeah, amongst all the sawdust.
I would go for a set of bevel-edge chisels ranging from 3mm up to 25mm, and maybe a small selection of firmer chisels which are more robust and can be used.
Okay, I think there's a set over here. What about a set like this or that?
A set like this would be ideal,
Yep.
and provide what's more important is the quality of the steel rather than what the handle's made of. So don't
Yeah, I
worry
was
if it's
going
got
to
a beech
say,
handle.
what
it's the steel
handle's
that
better,
matters.
Yeah.
plastic
Yeah.
or wood?
We visited Andy's workshops. I made a film about him called A Very English Maker,
Okay.
and we've got hours and hours
I
of
bet.
film of Andy sharpening chisels.
There are different. Everybody has their own preferred method of honing. I personally like the Japanese waterstones, which are available from Axminster. I generally use a 1200 grit followed by 6000, and they cut very quickly but give a superior edge. So one of these is pretty much essential. Either a high-speed grinder like this. This is for this will tend to keep the steel cooler, but ideally one of these for woodworking tools is better.
How often should you sharpen a chisel?
As soon as it starts to get slightly dull, which might be every 2 minutes or depending on the timber you work.
Yeah.
These Tormek machines are excellent because they're water cooled. There's no chance of drawing the temper, of overheating the steel with it. So we've got some over
Incidentally, I'm going to visit the Tormek factory next month
Oh, are you?
in Sweden.
Oh,
That's right,
oh
it's
fantastic.
Yeah. So I'll report back.
God, you do get around in your job. That's
Not one of
brilliant.
these myself. I've got
Yeah.
a bigger version which is oil cooled, but I've used one of these and they are excellent.
Yeah.
And they don't take
I
a
think
lot
I've
of
seen
space.
them made in the
Yeah.
flesh.
This is actually an impromptu meeting because Andrew, Tegan and myself have met up because Tegan is involved in promoting the award that Andrew and I are setting up, the Alan Peters Furniture Award, and the woodworker under Tegan's stewardship is promoting the event, and Axminster Power Tools are our main tool sponsor, so it was an excuse to talk tools and look around and see what tools we'd really consider if we were starting again. While we're here, I think it's interesting that both you and I, Andy, have got drum sanders, and it's like little and large. You've got a really big industrial one, where's the one I've got? I think it's over here. It's a tiny little machine, but they both do the same job, which is quite incredible because they're so precise for thicknessing and smoothing wood.
This is one I got, isn't it?
But probably not an essential for a woodworker.
Yeah.
But we have to bear in mind that finishing our work takes a lot of time. So having some kind of sander would be a priority, I think, in the workshop. I mean, there are little tools here, like a linisher on one side and a sander. I'd say for a beginner that would be quite good.
If we're applying edgings or lippings to components, particularly curved components, these clamps are fantastic. The reason is because these cam-shaped jaws here grip the work, and when we apply the torque
clever.
from there, the more pressure we put on there, the tighter this gets, and it really pulls the
it's
components
brilliant.
together. One of the other essentials for any woodwork, especially anybody doing furniture making or fine work, is a back saw, which is a saw with a steel or brass back to keep the blade rigid. And they're commonly known as tenon saws. Very good for cross-cutting small piece of timber, cutting shoulders. It's also useful to have one with rip teeth, which cut with the grain. Very useful for cutting tenons, cutting the cheeks of tenons, and cutting dovetails.
Do you think the weight is important?
It is, because to get an accurate cut with a tenon saw, one must never push downwards. They cut on the pushing action, so when we're using them, we simply push them forwards and backwards and let the weight of the saw do the work. Yeah, general purpose hand cut, cross cut and rip saws. So
Yeah.
for the general woodworker.
And they are
Saw.
essential kit, aren't they? Hand saws, because sometimes it's quicker to do a job with a hand saw than setting up a machine. If I was starting again, I would buy a bobbin stander, which I have, but I didn't have when I first started. But this is a really useful tool.
That's what we need. Need some of those.
Yeah. Oh,
Crack hook joints.
you can never have
hold
enough of
things
those.
together. So you'd need at least 4 of those.
Yep, they can range from about 2 to 6 inches. Yeah, we forgot to mention, thank you, we forgot to mention toolboxes, tool storage. Seen anything?
Not really.
And is that a priority?
Not really. No.
Not really. So where would you store your tools?
Probably store them in a drawer under the bench or make a rack. I prefer having them out of sight in a cupboard on the wall, ideally, shallow cupboard with shelves and dedicated places for them to sit.
Yeah. Do you know what? That reminds me of one of my earliest hammers from Shoreditch College days. It was a metalworking planishing hammer.
That's what it is.
And I still got it to this day. I don't know whether this is. It's got some Japanese symbolism on it, so no doubt it's for nailing in Japanese nails, whatever. But what a beautiful, simple object, and it's all about balance and weight and how you hold it, and it's just wonderful memories for me.
These are great, and what's good about these is they don't leave scratches, and because I like the weight of them, and you don't need to press on, just keep moving them around in big overlapping circles, you get a fantastic finish.
I mean, wow, some of them are gorgeous, but they're big.
That one we looked at first would be a good one for a general.
Yeah. Right, so if you were starting again from scratch, Andy, which one would you pick? And assuming you've got a reasonable sized workshop, I mean...
Start from scratch, I would probably go for one of these with the sliding
Show
table.
me. And why would you choose one?
Well, these are great for ripping and cross-cutting. You can, and if you've got to cross-cut any piece of timber or wide panels, these are a very safe and accurate way of doing it. It's a safety aspect as good as anything. You can rest a big piece on there. Cross-cutting.
What about the size of blade? What size blade would we go for?
Well, a 100mm blade, which is fairly standard.
100?
Which is 300, which has
300.
a cut of about 95.
Okay.
300.
And a kind of general purpose tip or a rip tip?
Always go for a general purpose tungsten carbide tip.
Yeah. Would you go for a portable circular saw?
I hate them. Frighten me to death.
Right.
I know cabinet makers who do use them. I used to know professional furniture maker who use one of those exclusively.
I'd say that's a fairly versatile all-round tool if you're doing outdoor decking.
Yeah, they're good for that, for general
and they're
woodwork,
very efficient for what they do. I'm a bit old-fashioned. I'm a Stanley man, not a record man, but...
This is a make I've not heard of before.
This is the Axminster brand rider.
What would you look for? I mean, you've picked out a slightly longer plane, a triangle.
Well, that's a jack plane.
A jack plane,
Number 5 or 5.5.
Yeah.
What's good about this? It's a good all-round plane. It's got quite a long sole, so it will span humps and hollows in a piece of wood which isn't flat and straight. It's a nice weight to it. It's not too cumbersome, and it'll do all work from planing up a big board to fine work, flushing off dovetails and so on.
Well, actually, I would priority machine would be a planer thicknesser, definitely, and probably a 10-inch one would be plenty big enough.
A pillar drill like this is an excellent investment in a workshop, particularly ones with a square table, which are better for woodworkers than the circular ones.
Why is that?
These are really aimed at metal workers. These are better because we can make a baseboard and apply fixed jigs to these more easily.
Couldn't you do that with that?
Well, possibly. But these are more aimed at woodworkers.
And what sort of size chuck are we talking about? Half inch?
It'll take up to a half-inch, which is probably the biggest.
Yeah.
Most Forstner bits that sell.
That's interesting. It's got a rack and pinion. What's going on there?
This is to give greater clearance to the column.
Would you need that?
Maybe sometimes if you're drilling holes in a very wide component.
Personally, I'm lost without my milling machine. I've got a really old, quite inexpensive Chinese one, and I use it all the time. I mean, okay, the drilling speeds are much slower for wood, but it does the job. And of course, dust extraction is very important. Would you?
It is really, you've got to look after your lungs.
Yeah.
So keeping the workshop tidy, it's definitely a health thing.
Yeah.
Keep the health and safety.
Is it something you can add to, or do you think you have to go for a certain size from the start?
These portable machines, you could buy one and connect it to different machines as you were using them, or you could go for have several of these dedicated to each separate machine.
Yeah, with different diameter tubes, yes, because some power tools have got much smaller diameter, haven't they? We've hypothetically gone over what you and I would buy if we were starting again, but now, where we are at now, is there anything here that you wouldn't mind taking home today that you haven't got?
The next piece of kit I buy, if I buy any more, will be these disc sanders.
Oh, I've got one of these.
Which are excellent.
I've got the very same one.
Have you?
Yeah, great.
Great for
solid, good size.
if we're truing, squaring up ends, and what they're particularly good at is if we're fitting inlays or beading with a mitered corner, these are really useful because you can just touch it against the rotating disc here and you get a perfect mitre every time. Now Jez, is there one piece of equipment here that you would buy and take home with you today?
If I had the space, which I don't, but if I did, then obviously I'd go for the biggest one. Wouldn't I do that? I think this is the biggest one. I mean, look at this. Oh, it's locked, but that's supposed to slide. I mean, I don't even know how to use them. I don't know why, but this would be a dream. I've survived without one. I mean, I'm a great bandsaw man. I love the bandsaw because it's quiet, it's not dangerous, it's not spewing out. You don't actually need dust extraction unless you're doing an awful lot. But what else would I like? I'm very lucky. I mean, over the years I've got everything I want, but I never have enough routers. Let's go and have a look at the routers. There are some beautiful routers here. I love these little tiny trimmers that now are on the market. They're cordless. You don't have a cable to trip over. Yeah. So would we need to buy a big one or a small one?
Personally, I'd go for a 1/4-inch collet, a smaller one to start with.
And a 1/4-inch collet includes an 8mm collet, which actually is an awful lot stronger. So I agree with Andy. I'd go for a smaller router to start with. They're never redundant. You know, you just add to them. You could put one in a. We've got a router table here. You can put your router upside down in a table. Would you go for a router table? So it's like a mini spindle.
Yes, they're not expensive. If you've got room for it, they're really useful things to have.
But which one of these woods would you pick to start?
Beginner? Well, maybe sycamore because it works easily.
Quite hard.
Yeah, it works. It's probably the easiest of these to work. Easy.
I love cherry. I think cherry's got a gorgeous figure.
Quite hard to work.
Bit of poplar.
Yeah, it's quite
Poplar's
brittle.
easiest of the lot to work.
What's easiest?
Poplar.
Have they got poplar here?
Yeah, it's that big bit at the back.
Oh, is that so? Do you know, it's one wood I've never used. Well, there you go, because it's very important. If you use a wood like oak, which is like steel, if you're a complete beginner, it can be very off-putting, but
What about ash?
that's my favourite.
It can be quite tough though, ash.
It is tough.
Probably
It's
not-
good for machining, but quite
First
hard
thing I ever
for...
made was in ash, and it really is a tough timber if you work in
Lime,
ash.
is that more wood carving?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very easy to work. Not really a furniture wood.
Okay, but we're so lucky there's such a choice of woods, isn't there? And this is our